Okay. Okay, I have 6:30, your worship.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to council meeting for the Township of Terrace for Monday, April 19th, 2021. This is virtual as a result of the pandemic, and I hope you can find your way in this. There will be opportunity for questions, and you can do that through various methods. Mr. Hall, could you let the public know how they can get a hold of council during these two meetings?
Sure thing. So the time for public comment comes later on in the meeting. Anybody wishing to speak for or against the application, please comment in the chat or use the raise hand button. And before you start speaking, please identify yourself with your first and last name. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a two-part meeting. The first part is an official plan zoning bylaw amendment meeting, and we'll begin it now. This is a virtual meeting, like I said. I'm looking for, is there any additions to this meeting? No, hearing none. I'll move on. Declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. If there are any declarations? Hearing none, I'll move on to item 4. This is a public meeting. This is a public meeting held by council under sections 22, 34, and 51 of the Planning Act. This meeting is declared open. The public meeting is to receive input on applications for a proposed plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment by Susan Smith from Cortec Group Incorporated on behalf of Jim Nichols Trucking Limited. The application for plan of subdivision is to create 16 seasonal residential lots to be serviced by private individual septic systems and wells. The application for official plan amendment is to permit a 6-meter wide private access road to increase the minimum setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 50 meters, and to redesignate the northern portion of the subject property from rural to open space to account for natural heritage features. The application for a zoning bylaw amendment is to increase the minimum setback from 30 meters to 50 meters to the high water mark, and to rezone the northern portion of the subject property from residential waterfront to open space. And now move on to the applicant's comments.
No, not just yet, your worship.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Clerk's notice of circulation and appeal statements in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The public meeting is a requirement of the Planning Act. In accordance with the Planning Act, notice must be given at least 20 days before the public meeting is held. Notice of this public meeting was given on March 22nd via email to persons requesting to be notified, and on March 24th in the Terrace Bay Scriber News. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Township of Terrace Bay on the proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, or plan of subdivision, you must make written requests to the Township. If a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Township to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make an oral submission at a public meeting or make a written submission to the Township before the official plan amendment or bylaw is passed, or a decision is made on the plan of subdivision, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Township before the official plan, oh, sorry, I already said that part. In the opinion of the tribunal, the last part was in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So we're on to the next section now, your worship, the planning report. So the Township planner from JL Richards and Associates Limited is in attendance tonight and can make a comment.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Erin. I'm the planner with JL Richards, working on behalf of the Township of Terrace Bay. We are currently undertaking our review of the application at hand. Tonight's public meeting is intended to receive public input only without a recommendation to council or decision being made on the application. As there's been interest in the applications, it is prudent to split up the public meeting and the decision process to hear from the public, reflect on the plan, and then come forward with a recommendation. It is anticipated that following the meeting, we will complete our review and recommendations and be in a position to bring it back to council in later this spring for recommendation and decision.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll proceed with the public meeting by first asking if the applicant or the representative would like to speak regarding the applications. So I've just invited Susan into the meeting. There she is. Hi there.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Okay, so I just don't know, John, if I'm going to share my presentation or will you be providing the presentation and I'll just ask for you to switch the slides.
Give me one quick second. I should be able to allow you to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Try that now, Susan. It should work.
Susan, will you identify yourself and who you represent?
Yes, of course. Good evening. My name is Susan Smythe. I'm a senior planner with Quartec Group, and I'm here to represent the applicant, owner, and developer, Mr. James Nichols.
Thank you.
I do not see it, sorry.
Try one more time. How about now?
Unfortunately, I do not.
I can share it then. Just give me a second to pull it up, okay?
Okay.
Sorry about that. Oops. Okay, back to Zoom. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Just one moment. So again, good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. Susan Smythe here. Our offices are located in St. Catharines, Niagara region. However, our firm has worked with the municipality in the past, and we have also built a relationship with the applicant, Mr. Nichols. Quartec was retained by Mr. Nichols to complete these applications for the amendments to the official plan and zoning bylaw for the new plan of subdivision for those waterfront lots. I'm here this evening to provide you with the information about the project, specifically the policy framework to support the development and the technical studies that were completed to offer some assurance that the development is feasible, subject to recommendations made by the qualified professional consultants in their field of expertise. So we'll get started on the presentation, the next slide, so that there's ample time to address comments and questions from both the public and council. The subject lands are shown in the yellow dashed lines on the drawing to the right. The lands are 37.76 hectares or 93.16 acres in size and covers the south-facing slope of Blue Jay Ridge. The lands are constrained by a high relief and notable drop in elevation by approximately 75 meters, 246 feet, from the northern half being closest to Highway 17 down to the waterfront. The Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, MNRF for short, has confirmed that there are no significant creeks, rivers, or significant wetlands or coastal wetlands present on the subject lands. As you can see in the image in the middle, the lands are dominated by mature trees, white birch and aspen, balsam fir, white spruce, mountain ash, black spruce, and dense understory shrubs and herbs is located on the lands, and these are typical for this region. The MNRF and Parks Canada confirmed that there are no sensitive fish habitat. However, they expressed concerns for protecting the Lake Superior from erosion, given the sensitivity of cold water lakes and the fish species. And they recommended that the proposed development be considerate and provide erosion sediment control measures into the design of the lots. The MNRF also identified that woodland caribou as a species at risk, which is listed as a species of concern in the region, primarily Hydro Bay. And the subject lands are located within the discontinuous range that extends inland from the coastal population. And there is the probability of caribou using the area for coastal migrations. The proposed development includes maintaining a natural wooded area, roughly 200 meters from east to west, from Highway 17 to the proposed new private road that could allow for the small numbers of the woodland caribou to occasionally migrate through this area. With respect to other species, for instance, little brown bat, northern long-eared bat, they prefer mature forests for resting and roosting. The MNRF did not express issues or concerns since the northern portion of the property and the area adjacent to the open habitat at the north end is being maintained or undisturbed. During a site visit by the biologist, the beach associated with the lands was noted to transition from sandy sections to sections with a notable cover of cobble-sized rounded rocks as represented in the image in the center. The groundwater was noted to be seeping into the beach at a few locations towards the east side of the property, indicating shallow groundwater conditions. Therefore, it was recommended that no development occurs within the 30 meters, approximately 98 feet of the lake, excluding the boat launch, which is to protect the beach and to avoid substantial depletion of the groundwater table, and which in turn, it will regulate the inputs of cold, clean water back to Lake Superior. I provided a snapshot of the Voyager hiking trail, which is a segment of the main trail of Cask Isles. The trail stretches approximately 890 meters across the property. It is a 2-meter wide trail, and its location from the east is approximately 60 meters, roughly 196 feet, south of Highway 17, and it gets as close as 4 meters, 13 feet to the water's edge, and then it heads north again off to the property. The lands are surrounded by rural, mature woodlands to the north, east, and west, with Lake Superior to the south, and the Ontario Power Generation Station is also located to the east of the site. Next slide, please. The proposed development consists of the 16 waterfront lots as identified by John and by Aaron. There will be the 6-meter, approximately 19.6 feet wide gravel road as a primary access to the lots. The trail will also be relocated along this road. There will also be a boat launch, which will be only accessible by the individual owners through the cottage association of the lots and not have public access. This is to avoid safety and personal liability issues on private lands. Further, it would not be fair that a cottage association is paying for the taxes and for the maintenance of a parking area around the boat launch, and the public would use it for free. This leads me to the purpose of these applications being presented before you, of which requests changes to the official plan designation, which is the primary and secondary uses of the land. Right now, the lands have a dual designation with rural and caribou range discontinuous overlay. The official plan defines rural designation as use of land primarily for the conservation and protection of natural resources and resource extraction, with some limited opportunities for tourism and resource-oriented commercial uses and low-density residential use. The requested change, there are 3 for the official plan. The number one requested change is to provide for greater protection of the northern half of the lands. By doing that, it would remove the rural designation and replace it with open space. It would also continue the Caribou Range discontinuous overlay as well. Given the significant difference in the elevation, it's just not feasible to allow for any residential in that portion of the lands, and the open space designation will allow for the continued long-term protection of those mature trees for wildlife and the wildlife habitat that use that part of the property. Secondly, the request is to apply for a site-specific policy to amend section 3.10.3.3, where it will allow for a new 6-meter private road to service the new lots from an existing access road from Highway 17 that is currently owned by Mr. Nichols, the applicant. Currently, the policy does not allow for new private roads with no direct access to a public road. Lastly, the designation change is for a site-specific policy to amend section 7.3.1.2, and this is to increase the minimum setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 50 meters. So according to section of the official plan 7.3.1.2, waterfront development policies, primarily these waterfront residential developments along Lake Superior shall maintain a minimum 30-meter setback and shall be expected to evaluate runoff, sediment, or erosion control measures consistent with all of the requirements and guidelines of the ministry. According to the preliminary hydrological study that was completed on the site, the recorded overburden of the lands have a significant reduction in its overall permeability within about 50 meters of the beach, which is mostly sandy on the surface, and a high proportion of sand would naturally result in lower permeability. Therefore, the development and or any construction should be set back at least 50 meters from the high water mark. And an import of sand, silt, and soil would be brought to the site to sustain a private septic system for the lots. Therefore, based on that recommendation, that is the requested change for the minimum setback from the high water from the 50 meters to the 30 meters. The zoning bylaw amendment is to regulate the use of the lands and implement these policies, and therefore amending section 20.1 and to set the minimum yard of the main building, rear yard that abuts the water, from the minimum 30 meters to the minimum of 50 meters from the water's edge. The next slide, please. This image, and I'm sorry, I don't know if we can zoom in closer, but it's essentially shows the draft plan of subdivision that is used to support these applications for the amendments. It shows the 16 lots. It shows the boat launch, which is represented as block 17, the 6-meter private road, and that will connect, sorry, excuse me, my apologies. And that will connect from the existing access road from Highway 17, of which I had mentioned Mr. Nichols owns and maintains. Next slide, please. From a policy analysis, in order to determine the feasibility of these and the appropriateness of the development against the provincial policy statement, the growth plan for Northern Ontario and the Township of Terrace Bay, the proposal seems to be appropriate for the following reasons. The proposed development of these residential lots or waterfront lots, will contribute to the target for housing, which is intended for low density use of the lands. And there are housing options that can stimulate economic activity in the area by attracting different demographics, from young families to vacation seasonally or establish a longer term residency and access the local services, for instance, stores, restaurants, and medical facilities. The low density residential is a permitted use, and the total number of lots are compatible given the rural landscape and existing recreational and waterfront lots that are located just west of the subject lands. In terms of private service, Subsection 7.3.1.1 seasonal recreational land use in the official plan states that development of seasonal recreational dwellings shall be permitted in the rural area, but shall require a specific zoning amendment to be implemented as part of an approval to a draft plan of subdivision. This is currently being completed by the applicant. Furthermore, development will only be permitted where it can be adequately serviced with an individual on-sewage service and individual on-site water service, and where site conditions are suitable for the long-term provision of such services. And any new seasonal residential lots on private services typically would have not less than 61 meters of frontage and 1 hectare of lot area. In this circumstance, the proposed lots meet this requirement. The relocation of the trail will be fully accessible by the public along the new private road and will not traverse through the private lots. As noted earlier, there will be no intention for public access to use the boat launch that will be exclusive to the cottage association and private owners of the lots. And it is recommended that the public use the newly improved municipal beach about 4 kilometers east of the subject lands. Lastly, it's the intention to retain the northern portion of the subject lands for woodland caribou and any other wildlife that may occasionally come to migrate through the area, and will serve to protect bat species as well, using the property that depend on the older trees for roosting and resting habitat. It is the intent that there will be that many trees will be maintained as possible in the southern portion, and to mitigate any direct and indirect impacts for the private road and the building of those lots will be the preparation of a tree preservation and replacement plan. Next slide, please. This slide is just to show the next steps in the process. So it represents the planning process that's being followed, with the first right now being the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment, which is to confirm the land use designation and how the lands can be used for and how they can be regulated. So we are here before you this evening with this information. I'm also here to respond to any comments and concerns and issues raised by council and members of the public. After this, there is the intent to go back to committee council for a future meeting where there can be some deliberation and the staff's recommendation for these applications. Then there will be the notice of decision and the 20-day appeal period. The second step is then the draft plan of subdivision, at which time the draft plan approval will be required, and there'll be conditions, and those will need to be satisfied prior to any development being issued for construction. This will likely involve additional technical studies and confirmation of building footprints, and to determine the septic design and location for the individual lots. It will also involve other discussions and details on the erosion and control measures for the protection of the water's edge. Again, the tree preservation plan, as I indicated earlier, to determine the number of trees that would be removed and then likely replanted to offset the impacts. And now the last step will be the building permit, at which time all final approvals would be granted on the draft plan, the conditions would be satisfied, the agreement would then be registered and the plan on title, and so they could be sold individually and then brought forward for individual building permits. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm willing to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions? This is the mayor speaking. John, is it okay to speak?
Yes.
Yes. One question is the hiking trail, you have it going along the road. Is there any reason why we wouldn't be putting the hiking trail to the north side of the road, the length of the road, so that the hikers stay off the road and have a more of a hiking experience in the wilderness? and safety for them and the people, the owners of the cottages that are driving along the road.
For you, Mr. Mayor, that's a great question. That is something that could definitely be discussed with the applicant. If there is the likeliness of trying to maintain that rugged type of feel of a hiking rather than that stretch across a private gravel road, that's something I'd have to discuss with the applicant.
And may I suggest that maybe the applicant in this particular issue that he discussed this with the Cascale Hiking Trail Club?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, yes, something I will definitely bring forward to the applicant. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Rick.
Just a question about the road access. You state that it will be a minimum of 6 meters. Is that municipal standard, John or Susan? Do you know? Does that meet municipal standards for a road?
Through the chair, not to, I'd have to look that up to see what our rural road width would be.
Mr. Chair, through to you. Typically, when we do develop private developments, 6 meters is typically the minimum right of way for emergency service access. So that's typically the standard that we've been going by on other private road developments is the 6 meters.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Moore.
Yes, I'd like to stay with the road issue for a second. I'm looking at the map of the subdivision, and it's showing the existing private road as opposed to the proposed new road. The existing private road, is that, I'm unclear as to the current ownership of that property. I thought that road was owned by the current cottagers in that particular area. If that's not the case, then your map doesn't show the road that the cottagers have.
Through to you, Mr. Chair. John, if you don't mind, if you can zoom into that draft plan a little bit more clearly so that I can kind of show the representation. So it is my understanding that Mr. Nichols does own that access road that is coming down from Highway 17. Okay, yeah. So it kind of is a wavy representation. So the road that the existing private road, correct.
Okay, so it's not owned by the cottagers and maintained by the current cottagers.
That is maintained, right. So that is owned right now by Mr. Nichols. So the proposed 6 meter private road will be coming from that existing access. That, yes.
Okay, so the current cottagers that are down there now, they have an agreement with Mr. Nichols to continue using that road?
That is correct. That is my understanding. Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any, John, are we at stage 4 applicants' comments?
Sorry, is there any other questions from council at this point?
John?
Hearing none, we can move on to the next section, Your Worship.
Right.
Okay. As at this time, we ask that the Township's planning consultant provide an overview of public comments received to date.
Thank you again. So we've received approximately 10 comments to date regarding the proposed official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and subdivision. All of these comments have already been provided to council. They were also included in the agenda for tonight's public meeting. But for those of you listening, I'm still going to provide an overview of what's been received thus far. So these comments have come from members of the public, community groups, and various commenting agencies. We received one comment on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, or MECP, which just asked to clarify the size of the lots that are being proposed. It is required that lots in this area that are going to be on individual septic and well have a minimum of 1 hectare in lot size. So based off the draft plan that was provided, that Susan went over this evening, each lot does meet that minimum 1 hectare lot size requirements. We also received a comment from Ontario Power Generation, or OPG, which identified potential concern related to the location of their monitoring wells on the property. They also noted that there could be noise and dust related to the OPG operations with construction and maintenance that does occur in the area. They did provide that they have no objections to the proposed subdivision application, and they did provide a letter with concerns and conditions to be considered for the draft approval of the plan of subdivision. We also received one comment on behalf of the Hydro Bay Campers Association, which asked that their land be treated equally. They were advised that if they were to apply for rezoning, they would also be subject to the planning processes. This comment further provided information on a bylaw and a contract that's in place for the road and for its standards and how it's maintained. We do not have a copy of that bylaw or contract yet, but that just so we are aware that there is one out there. They identified concern at the point where the new road is going to come into contact with the existing access road for the Hydro Bay Campers Association. And they did comment further that they voted against this plan. We received another comment on behalf of the Hydro Bay Campers Association, which asked that they have access to the new road. We also received one comment just asking to be consulted during this process, and they did note that the main Cascale Trail does go through this property. We received one comment asking for public access to Lake Superior. And finally, just 3 comments asking to be kept informed of the project, one specifically asking to be in attendance at tonight's meeting. That's an overview of the comments we've received so far.
Okay.
Okay, Your Worship, we are on to the public comment portion. So I do have a list here of, I do see some hands up and I do have some chat people looking to speak. If you'll permit me, Your Worship, I'll proceed with that.
Please do.
Do any members of the public wish to speak regarding the applications? Please state your name and address for the record. So I will start. What I saw is the first person with their hand up. Forgive me if that's not how you saw it. That's how I saw it. I have a gentleman identified himself, or somebody identifying themselves, excuse me, as Jamie. I'm going to allow you to talk now. Hi, Jamie. Is this Jamie Winters?
Yes, it is.
We can hear you, Jamie. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for allowing me to speak at this open session. I have a few concerns and then a couple of statements about this. My great-grandfather, if I have time, built the road from the highway all the way down to where the Hydro Bay Campus Association is located. We've had verbal contracts with the mill owners in the past, going from McMillan Modell to Kimberling Park to Buchanan to who the current owner is now. In our transfer deed documents, and when we became an association in the year 2000, we have in our bylaws and have been paying for the maintenance of that road from the highway down to our camps. We pay very high membership fees that I collect from the six camp owners, and we pay thousands of dollars in maintenance for that road. It's a sketchy road to start with. It's steep. There's turns in that road that I can never imagine a fire truck or anybody going down. John, you may recall, we even tried to get access to a grader at one point because it was washed out so badly. I've had no discussion with Mr. Nichols regarding that portion of the access road from the highway to where the new road meets. I've had no discussions. I've actually phoned him a few weeks ago and spoke with him personally with my concern about where this new 6-meter road goes to once it meets our access road. It kind of just stops. And he assured me that road would continue on through his property to the road that is further west of that access road. That's the only access he has that he can use, because from this new road that's 6 meters wide up to the highway, you cannot travel down that road. You need a 4x4 vehicle to get down there. And once again, our members have been maintaining that road for eons. Again, my great grandfather built that road down and we've been maintaining it. At no point in time has Mr. Nichols ever, I had to spend a few $1,000s for truckloads of fill actually for Mr. Nichols so we can fix that road. And that was Mr. McCure. So I need some more information as to who's going to be maintaining that road now. If in fact it does go up the hill, that's not what Mr. Nichols told me. He told me it runs parallel with that road to his road that he has further west. I'm hoping that's the route he goes. So we do have something. If you want to look it up through Illingsworth and Thunder Bay, you can look at our transfer deed and how through all those various mills in the year 2000 that we have full rights to use that road. Mr. Nichols actually, we both put a gate at the top of that road. If we put a gate at the top of that road, and we paid for it, he allowed us to do that. We paid for it. And that's why I have a couple of more issues with, I hear surfers or surf groups want to have public access, and our association, which directly abuts this property, and we're absolutely against that. And I'll tell you why. So not only did my great grandfather build that road up to the highway, he also built the one along the road to the OPG property. In the 40s, my grandfather, Melty Winters, had a verbal agreement with the Voyager hiking trail at that time, which is now the Cascades hiking trail, that you can go across our property, you can cross our property. And that is also in our transfer deed documents, allowing them to do that. I have no problem with the hikers walking on through our property and carrying on their way. It is a beautiful area. I don't mind that. What I do mind is the groups of people that stop and camp and have bonfires, and where me and the kids have to go clean up garbage on the beach because people are staying there. Now, I'm not saying it's the surfers, but people that stay there and congregate there. There's glass, they're shooting guns and taking pot shots at things in the area. And we maintain that. And because we're seasonal camp owners and we have absolutely zero services, it's very frustrating for people that have no legal right to that land or demanding wording to be changed. It's frustrating, and I'm not picking on any one group. And if any of you ever took a walk along that bottom road, you'll know it's an old growth forest. One little amber from a fire that's left going after they finish doing whatever they're doing, we'd have no access out of that property. We have one way out of there, and if there was a fire, I'd hate to see what would happen. So as far as I'm concerned, if it's somebody who buy a lot, you can surf the waves as much as you want, or go to your multi-million-dollar waterfront in Terrace Bay. That's beautiful. You have boat launches there that you can use. But so that's that side of it about the trail. I have no issue with that. What I do have issue with who's going to be maintaining this road on that very sketchy road that, like I said, vehicles cannot get around that one corridor. It's horrendous and it's very steep. And like I said, I spoke with Jim Nichols himself a few weeks back, and he assured me that road would run parallel through to as far west of the road. So am I being lied to? I really want to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comment? Susan?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. I will speak with Mr. Nichols further and we will provide a response, provide that to planning, Ms. Reed, and to incorporate into the recommendation report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. John, who is next?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe I have Matt Barutsky on the line next, which I'm going to allow to talk now. So please provide your full name and address. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. You could hear me?
We can.
Good evening.
Okay, I'm Matt Barutsky. I'm the president of the Cascals Hiking Association, vice president of the Voyager Trail Association as well. My address is 141 Sunset Drive in Scarborough, Ontario. We have received this application here. We didn't receive anything from Mr. Nichols or from the Township of Terrace Bay. We saw the Terrace being used, so I responded and asked for access. And thanks very much for allowing me to attend the meeting. We appreciate that. We understand through our verbal agreement with Mr. Nichols is that we're able to maintain our trail through his property as it is right now, and that we always honor our landowner's wishes, and that when he moves it up to the road, when he builds the road in there, for sure that we don't want to have people going across the property where everybody is, right? Where they own those pieces of property, you don't want to have a trail going across there. So we will accept that we have to move to the road. The one or two things that we have is if you're going to have 16 different properties going down there with one or two vehicles, is that we have a little bit of signage on there with just watch for walkers or watch for hikers or something like that. As Jody said, you're going to have people using that. Respectfully to Jody, we have 53 kilometers of trail that we maintain, and there's lots of wilderness activity out there. So if we just have to follow a road for 2 or 3 kilometers, that's not that big of a deal. We are allowed by the transfer deed agreement with the Camp Owners Association on the west side is to have our trail go access to their property where it was. That was the original agreement with Kimberly Clark back in the day, and we're appreciative of that fact as well. The access road going up to the highway is deemed as our A8 access. And we've used that just for walking down to access the trail to do maintenance over the years. The Camp Owners Association has gated it off at the top for security reasons. We understand that, we agree with them. We continue to use it just as walking down with a chainsaw on our shoulder type of thing. So the two things that we want to talk about through the Cascals is when we have this road built, and I'm looking on my computer, so if I kind of glance off to the side, if you guys can see me here, but when we have the road built, that it goes over to the road that is maintained by the Camp Owners Association of Hydro West. So when it goes to that road, our main trail usually came across and intersected at the bottom. On that last straight stretch, it's going to be changed from an access location to the main trail. So we'll have to have some signage there directing people where to go. That costs money for us to maintain signage, right? We have grants that we put out there for whatever amount of money, but that costs money for us to do that. We ask that we be recompensed when we're redirecting the trail away from where it goes, to have a little bit of signage put up, and also along the road to have protection signs up there for be aware of hikers or be aware of walkers on that trail, on that road as well. And at the point where we do build the road, whenever that gets to that point, we have a verbal land agreement with Mr. Nichols for his access across the property. And we understand where that's going because he doesn't really have a full plan of where he's going to go yet, because this is in development. When he bought the property, he didn't want to go to a written agreement. Let's keep it verbal and moving forward. But now this is going to be cemented in here, right? When this road goes in, that's being built and we're going to have access through that road. We would ask that at that point that we have a landowners agreement in place, agreeing with both him and us, that we have access to the road to go down to the property and down through the Hydro West Camp Owners Association through that way. Not only to protect us, our users that are going there, but to protect the landowners as well. We'll have to hook off of, if you look on the far right of the property on the east side, I'm not too sure how many meters it is from where our trail accesses the property at this time up to where the road is going to be built. I kind of tried to measure that off, but it was too foggy. I couldn't really look at it, but wherever it is, I'm sure that James will help us out. James has been very good to our trail as we go along. So we really have no problems with that. It's just the two things we ask for is protection signage for the walkers along the road, and for the verbal landowners agreement to be changed to a written landowners agreement for the east side of his property when that does happen. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any reply, Susan?
Yes, through you to Mr. Chair. In response to those protective signage and to make it more of a legal agreement, that is something that we can definitely consider as part of the subdivision agreement, that there's a clauses and conditions that are brought into that agreement, which would be registered on title. So that's something definitely that we can have a discussion with Mr. Nichols and with municipality. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have user, we'll call them user one. So I'll just ask them to unmute and identify themselves. The complicated thing now is I have two people listed as users, so hopefully this is the one who had their hand up first. Everybody will get a chance to speak, so. Hi,
Hi.
who are we speaking with?
I think can you hear me? It's Pat Spadoni.
We can.
Okay. I just have a short question here. I didn't see it in any of the.
Pardon me, would you identify your address?
Oh, my address is 9 Scott Avenue, Terrace Bay, Ontario.
Thank you.
Okay. The question is that when the subdivision gets passed and it gets through, is the property going to be noted as like RW, waterfront residential, just sort of like, well, similar to the rest of us?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to answer that question, yes, it is proposed to be zoned such as that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Next, Mr. Hall.
Okay. Next, I have Chris Dubé. I will allow him to talk. Mr. Dubé, please go ahead. Or identify yourself and your address, please.
Hello, my name is Chris Dubé. I'm a resident of Terrace Bay. My address is 85 Terrace Heights. Like Mr. Winters mentioned, I consider myself a surfer and somebody who promotes surfing and tourism within this community. And I'm extremely excited to have some time to speak to all of you, as I've spoken to most of you previously about my my proposal. Basically, and it was on our 32-page PDF, and I'll just take a second to reread it for you. And if there's any questions or whatnot, please just let me know. And here we go. As a concerned citizen of Terrace Bay, there's a few items that have caught my attention that I believe are important moving forward prior to passing the proposed amendments. In the document titled Proposed Official Plan and Zoning Bylaw Amendments for the Draft Plan of Subdivision for Terrace Bay Cottages, Section 1.5, Public Spaces, Recreation, Parks, Trails, and Open Spaces, on page 10 and 11, the policy 1.5.1 states that, quote, healthy, active communities should be promoted by C, providing opportunities for public access to shorelines. This policy is echoed in the official plan for Terrace Bay in 2015, or in subsection 7.3.2.1.2, pardon me, waterfront development policy states, quote, it is a policy of council that public access to the shorelines will be reserved through the design of future developments or redevelopments where appropriate. This may include the establishment of public lots or public right-of-ways within shoreline subdivisions. And that's on page 92. And like I said, all of you have seen this before, as it was sent to you by John earlier as well. However, paradoxically, the bylaw amendments for the Hydro Bay site states that, quote, the proposed waterfront residential development is not intending for public accessibility to the shorelines, as these lots will be individually owned with a common / shared boat launch dedicated exclusively to the owners. So I heard Mr. Winters speak about the surfers and pot shots and fear of fire and whatnot. And I've been accessing that area for 15 years. I have 300 signatures from residents around here who want and are very excited to keep this, or to see this proposed boat launch come into the public hands, right? At least to public accessibility. All right. So I spoke to somebody who was in charge of the Mink Mountains in Nebing. It was under my impression that during this process, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there 5% cash or 5% land in lieu that goes to the township for this to move forward? What I'm asking, it's a win-win for both. It's a win for the developer, and it's a win for town council and for us here in Terrace Bay. 16 lots, taxes on 16 lots. Now, and James gets to develop his lots as well. So he makes money, the town makes money, the public now has access to a part of Hydro Bay, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful sandy beach. To say go 4 kilometers to Main Beach, it sounds, for me personally, it's a very arrogant sounding thing. Just go over there. It's very elitist. If you buy a lot, is something I've heard as well. And it's just like, well, is shoreline access now, is accessing the Lake Superior Marine Conservation Area, is this becoming an elitist thing that only people with a lot of money can now access? I want to see public access. Anybody from town can go down there. They could take pictures. They can watch the birds in the old growth forest. And looking at the archaeological assessment, there's artifacts from there on the escarpments from some of the First Nations people, right? These are all amazing things that we should all have access to. And my proposal, I'm not against the development. I say the development should go forward. However, my opinion is that there should be public access. And again, it stays in line with the, how can I say this? Sorry, give me 1 second. With the official plan of Terrace Bay, right? And it just makes sense to me. It aligns both of those. And like I said, I have 300 people from this area, and that was only put out on Facebook on the Take Care Terrace Bay site and my Lake Superior surfers site. Again, like I don't know how people feel. Like, again, you don't know surfers. Firstly, for me, I'm a teacher here. I have 2 kids. I bring them on the lake all the time. Other surfers, Lindsay McLeod, she's a doctor here in town. We have physiotherapists, we have dietitians. We're not out there starting fires and breaking glass. This isn't a thing. I was the past president of the Catskill Trail for years. My philosophy is leave no trace, right? And I understand that the Campers Association, you know, they have their sort of fears, and they got broken in 2 years ago. I get it. You know, there's fears with that. Who's going to maintain the road, right? There's questions regarding that. My 2 cents is, through like working together, I believe that here's our opportunity now to take something and create a public access to it. Another opportunity for people to access the Lake Superior Marine Conservation Area as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris. Susan, do you have any comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair, at this time, I do not. I'll have to speak with Mr. Nichols.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hall, do you have another speaker?
I do, Your Worship. I believe it's Mr. Ty Williams. I will unmute. Ask you to identify yourself along with Your address, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We
Go
can.
ahead.
Okay, I'm Ty Williams, 178 Hydro Bay at 125 Sherbrooke Street, Thunder Bay, Ontario. I'm a Terrace Bayite. I was born there, raised. We still have our cottage. We're on the east side for all these years. And I was just wondering, this one first question is to Susan Smith. I seen your map that Mr. Nichols has, but it abruptly ends right as where the road goes into Winter's Camp, and there's no showing where that road is going. Like, shouldn't that be on the map? Where's it gonna run to, and how far behind our camps is it gonna be? So we have to clarify that. Mr. Nichols is gonna have to show us where that road's gonna be, since he's not gonna be going up the road where we had an agreement with Kimberly Clark through Illingworth and Illingworth that we will not stop Kimberly Clark from using access to that road. And that's gone through lawyers and everything. It's all documented. And as Jamie stated, we, the campers, maintain that road. Nobody else maintains that road. We put our money into that road. And as Mayor Davis and council knows, the township does not grade that road. We have no garbage service. We have no services at all. So if we have another road crossing where that is our only access, we cannot be denied, because the bottom road where Mr. Nichols is putting those lots, my father pushed that road in there past the Hydro Bay. That's why the nature trail that Matt's talking about, that's what people walk that trail. But that's our only access in and out. But we would like to know where this road's going to end up. And I'm sure the township of Terrace Bay would like to know where this road's going through to meet the other private road. And also, the question is, the council, with this land development with 15 lots, how is that going to be for our tax base in the future? If these lots are like people building camps or homes or whatever there, and they're buying and selling, is that going to raise the crap out of our taxes on our west side for MPAC? And another big question is, as you know, we've had that nature trail run through our property. And if you look at the map, actually our coalition owns from that point right across the water. We actually own the beach to the corner where the trail comes up on the last camp. And the hikers been walking through there for years. You know, we've had some good ones, bad ones, but it's right if you had somebody walk through your front yard every day. Whereas Mr. Nichols' proposal, they're moving the trail from not walking along the beach in front of those people's camps, enjoying the scenery. But the people enjoyed my outhouse quite a bit, to the fact where we had to actually put a padlock on it because of the toilet paper and the mess around and behind it.
And our thin seat,
And
things were left open.
but being a small town, say coalition, and we are on the west side, we just let it pass. We let people use, and we had to put the gate because I've been broken into 3 times. And one of the times was after the big surfing party there one day. And you know, that's not enjoyable. That's why we paid for, like Jamie stated, and put the gate at the top of the hill, so nobody has access to there. Because we'd have even vehicles parked in the middle of the road camping, and we couldn't even get out of our own road. Now, if we had an emergency, how does the emergency get in there? And as Jamie stated, the winding road, you wouldn't get one of those big trucks down there anyway. But that is one of the biggest questions too, is what's going to happen with our property taxes? With these, are we separate as a coalition from that coalition? Because I know the far east side with Pat Spinoni and the rest, they're paying just like the rest of us with no services. But as soon as somebody sells, the property taxes go up. So is this development going to drive all our property taxes up? You know, we're trying to, like we're blue collar workers. We're just trying to have a camp and pass it down to our children. It was passed down to me. I plan to pass it down to my children, and we're not selling. And how do you sell if your property taxes are skyrocketed? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Susan, you got any response to any of those questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, through to you. So in respect to a couple of your questions, number one, where is the road going to end up at the east end? The reason for the abrupt terminus on the east end is because that is the limit for Mr. Nichols' property. So therefore, there could be some reworking in terms of a turning, a better turning movement, if you will, for cars at that location. But as it stands right now, that's the limit of his property. And so that's where the road is ending. In terms of where there'll be an increase of taxes, I know that this question has come up in the past in terms of particularly these sites along the waterfront, and the taxes are pretty hefty considering there are no services and there will be no services. So this is definitely something that is being further investigated. And hopefully there'll be future discussions with the municipality in terms of taxes. Will there be an increase in the balance of the municipality in taxes? Again, I can't really answer that question. That is something that would have to be discussed internally, I believe, with municipal staff. In terms of trespass, I definitely get the sense of that issue. And that is primarily the reason for not permitting the direct public access to the boat launch. Primarily if there's going to be a cottage association for these individual lots. So if they are going to be, and I understand the maintenance of that road that comes from Highway 17. I believe that's definitely something that we'll be having a further discussion with Mr. Nichols in terms of the maintenance, also the improvements to that road, because that will definitely be a requirement and likely a condition for the draft plan of subdivision so that the road can be better accessed. But with respect to, again, the trespassing issues with break-ins, again, that is one of the main concerns to not allow the public access through that boat launch, and that it is for those property owners or the cottage association that will be paying for the upkeep of that particular boat launch. And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Anything else?
Regarding taxes, that's a very complicated question. And taxes for residents are based on impact assessment value, and then based on the total assessment in the community, and then based on what the requirements are in the community from finances. Unless Mr. Mulligan would like to explain that a little better for me, would you like to try to take a stab at it, Dan, or Dan, to explain how we get the relationship between taxes and assessment?
No, Mr. Mayor, you explained it quite well. The assessment is what it is. MPAC sets the assessments. We only set our municipal or our residential rates. So we'd have no, we wouldn't know the impact yet at this time. It would definitely, we'd have to take a further study on it.
Thank you very much. Okay, John, would you ask our next speaker or find our next speaker?
Certainly, Your Worship. I did have two that the hands have lowered again, so I'll go to the next one. Mr. Aiden Camiso. So please identify yourself along with your address. I'm going to allow you to talk right now.
Thanks, Mr. Hall. Thanks, council, for letting me listen on the meeting. I'm just raising a question. This is Aiden Camiso. It's on behalf of my parents, Mark and Claire Camiso. They reside at 212 Columbia Street in Scriber, Ontario. So they both own a cottage or a camp down on the west side of Hydro Bay. I just wanted to raise a question with respect to the rezoning proposal. Just if you could clarify, Ms. Smythe, about the intention to rezone the lots themselves. I know that the proposal is to rezone the north area of the land plot to be open space, but I just wanted to confirm, what is the intention for the proposal to rezone the actual lots themselves? My understanding right now is that they are seasonal lakefront residential properties, and the intention is to rezone that, or to apply to rezone that rather, to be rural space. Is that correct, or am I mistaken? Thanks so much.
Thank you. Ms. Smith?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. So the intent of the zoning amendment, currently right now, in the schedule of the zoning bylaw for Terrace Bay, it shows that it's zoned RW, waterfront residential. So what we are doing is we're asking to rezone the southern portion to be maintained as a site-specific exception for waterfront residential, so RW. However, to increase that setback from 30 meters to 50 meters from the high water table, as per the recommendations from the hydrogeological. And then the northern portion to rezone it from RW to open space. Again, to be consistent with the redesignation for open space, so that there's the long-term protection of that treat area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hull. You have another speaker.
I do, your worship. There was one more, someone by the name of Angela. I'm going to allow her to talk.
Go ahead, Angela. State your name and your address, please.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, it's Chris Houston, Jody. I'm on Angie's computer here. Chris Houston, Lot 45, White Sand Lake, Scriber. I'm a local rep for James for the project, and I also provide him some technical services out there, in particular on that project. Maybe I can just touch briefly on that private property the public use issue. You know, we've had both sides of that and covered that pretty well. There's just one scenario that I should throw in there is that, you know, the plan would be for those cottagers to have a cottage association down the road, you know, when things are running down there. So they would be looking after the maintenance of that road and the boat launch. So, you know, you have to sort of consider what their feelings would be if they loaded up their boat and went down to the boat launch only to find the parking lot full of vehicles from the public and the boat launch full of people from the public, when they are actually paying for that, and that's part of why they're there. So I think we need to throw that into the mix there as well. And then maybe I can just talk briefly about that proposed road that would run along behind the other cottages on the west side there. Right now, that is just a line on a map. James and I had talked about that quite a bit, and I plotted that road before that were to happen. And the reason it would happen is because, as Jamie Winters pointed out, that is quite a treacherous road up through that switchback and, you know, the old route. The idea would be to run that new road along the west shore and have it come out on his other road, the one on the west property. Much safer, much, you know, more reasonable location. So at this point, we don't really know where those the survey lines of those existing properties are. So we would have to, you know, we need to know where they are before we plan the road. But just to put Tyrone Williams at ease, you know, the road would not be built like right on their survey line. It would be a tree buffer likely, and, you know, done in a reasonable way to sort of make everybody happy there. So right now it's a line on a map, but that would be the preferred route. We still need to go in there on the ground and, you know, find the best location to actually build the road on. But the campers there need to know that, you know, they're not going to have dust and people right in their backyard driving by. It would be done in a reasonable manner, because James does own all that property that runs, you know, along behind their existing lots there. Any questions?
No, that's good, Chris. Really appreciate the clarification. Susan, any
Okay,
response?
thank you. Yeah,
Did I
thank
hear?
you.
Okay, you're welcome, Chris. Thank you for your presentation. John, is there any other speakers?
Yes, your worship, just give me a second here. I have Darlene MacArthur. I'm going to allow her to talk.
Go ahead, Darlene. Take your off mute, please.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Okay. It's Darlene MacArthur from Terrace Bay. I was just wondering, with all these lots, there's going to be like 16 lots or whatever. And he's got one designated as for a boat launch that nobody else is going to be able to use. It is going to be private. Now, is there going to be taxes expected to be paid on this empty lot that nobody else can use except for the cottage owners in that section? Thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. That's a good question. I don't know if anybody has an answer, but I'm sure it'll be investigated. Susan?
Mr. Chair, through to you, I would agree. That's definitely something that will be up for discussions as.
Okay. Mr. Hall, we got any other questions?
Open so many lots, then have a, like, make it a private.
Well, sorry if I cut you off, Darlene. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I think she was on, your worship. I think she just left herself unmuted. She can raise her hand again in a second. I do have a question from Vicky Gramatowski on behalf of Terrace Bay Scriber News. And the question is, will the council be considering a public easement?
We can't really answer that question right now. It hasn't been asked or looked into.
Okay.
Any other questions, John?
I don't see anybody raising a hand. I don't have anything else in the chat. What I will do is ask one more time. Councillor
Moore had his hand up a while ago.
Yes, I did, your worship. I had a question that I wanted to print to Matt Maritsky, but with regard to signage. I know that the hikers don't always promote camping on the trail, but I do know that people have camped on the trail. So would they be looking to have no camping signs in that particular development area?
I don't know if Matt's still on. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm here if you guys want to listen.
Yes, if it doesn't take too long.
Well, I could go on for hours, Jody. You know me, so
that's why I praise it too.
Yeah. If the camp owners there and the landowners wish us to say no camping on this private property, absolutely, we will put that sign up there. We always respect our landowners all across Ontario because without landowner association, landowner agreements, we wouldn't have trails across Ontario. We list our campsites on Cascals as it is through Terrace Bay page number 6 on hikesuperior.ca. And none of them include any campsites along that way. We can't stop anybody from stealth camping, but we could definitely add signage in there if that's what's required.
Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, any other questions, Mr. Hall?
Oh, sorry. I do believe I have Mr. Winters again.
Mr. Winters, one more question.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
You
Yes.
can.
Okay, just a little bit now. Thank you. I'm a little relieved to hear from Chris about where that road continues to. My questions now is about the tax rate. These camps have been in the family forever. And with these tax rates, it's simply forcing people out of these properties. Now, there may be some around this panel or others, but I've heard in the past things like, you should be so lucky to have a waterfront property. There was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that went into building this land and the roads to get to it. These properties were there even before Terrace Bay existed. And we love that area. We don't want to give up the properties. We don't want to sell them. We want to see a fair tax rate for residential properties on the water, but with knowing that they're seasonal. We have what, 4 or 5 months of use out of it. And there's camps on the bay that are close to $10,000 a year in taxes for 0 services. I don't have a garbage pass. I don't have lights, streets, garbage pickup, anything to justify the amount of money that we send to the township. Now, I heard in the past too that, well, we can go to the public library, we can go into town, do whatever we have to do. All 6 camps in this association, they either live in Scriber or they're from Thunder Bay. When we come down there to maintain that road and our properties in the summer, we may go to Terrace Bay and buy a couple of pizzas in town. That does not justify $20,000 a year in taxes as far as I'm concerned. So, Susan, I hope you realize these properties, even if they're classified as waterfront residential, let's say your lots are 100 to 150,000, you sell them for, I don't know if you're going to require the owner of the lot to clear the property, that might be another 50,000, and let's say 150 to 200,000 for a new camp. Terrace Bay is going to be collecting over $15,000 a piece, and they'll be rolling in the money, and that's for 0 services, nothing. I've tried to council before, just trying to get a lousy dump pass, and that's failed. So we have to work on the waterfront residential tax rate for seasonal dwellings. We cannot blame this on impact. I've spoken with Nellie Carla, the VP of Impact, when she came down here in 2018 when all the Walker's Lakes folks were up in arms. And sure, it's the assessments on the properties that are high, but also the tax rates. You don't have a seasonal property tax rate that's fair for everybody. In 2018, we hired a firm to look into it for us, and nothing came of it. It wasn't worth it. They wouldn't do much saving, is what I heard. Now, I don't know if it's still the OMB that you apply to, or it's probably maybe the local planning board now, but you can set forth a different tax rate. It's in the Municipal Act that you're allowed to set the tax rate. Have a special urban services tax rate, or a special, like just properties that we have 4 months of use out of it. For example, there's a camp on the east side, and it's just a 2-bedroom place. They're close to $10,000 a year for taxes. The same property with full services in the town of Terrace is like $3,500. So it's not all impact, and it's not all the assessment. It's the work of your planners in Terrace Bay to start setting some urban service special locations for everybody to get these taxes down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jamie. Is there any other questions? I will ask a final time, do any members of the public wish to speak regarding the proposed official plan amendment, bylaw, or plan of subdivision? Hearing none, the public meeting process is now completed. Council will give careful consideration to the comments received on the proposed plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and the zoning bylaw amendment. The applications will be brought forward at a later date as a meeting of council for consideration. Should you wish to receive notice of the date of this meeting, please advise the township. The public meeting is now closed. Thank you all for coming and participating.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Your worship, we do have a resolution to adjourn the public meeting.
Okay. We have a mover and a seconder. Would you, Councillor Johnson, Councillor St. Louis, seconder? Would you read the motion?
Resolve that we do now adjourn at 19:49 or 7:49 PM.
All in favor, raise your hands. Hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. We are now adjourned from this public meeting. We'll move right now into our regular council meeting.
Do you want to take a break, your worship, or keep going?
Yes, let's right now it is 7:49. Let's convene again at 8 PM.
We're not closing the Zoom, so anybody who wants to stick around, we'll just come back on when we're ready to go.
Okay. For Monday, April 19th, 2021. This again is a virtual meeting by Zoom. And if you have any questions, please reserve your questions to the end of the meeting where we'll have question and answer, question period. And if you have any questions, please, excuse me. Pardon me for the phone ringing. John Hall will take your questions at the end of the meeting in the question period. Item 2, additions and approval of agenda items. Are there any additions? Hearing none, we'll move on to declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Any declarations this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, CAO update. Item A, report of bylaw enforcement first quarter 2021. Mr. Dennis.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. This report is going to carry on from my last report to you near the end of December of last year. And I'm pleased to say that so far this year, it's been fairly quiet compared to the way things ended last winter. So I'll take us back to the beginning of December, and I undertook 2 townwide snow patrols looking for individuals who were not compliant with the town's parking bylaw relative to winter parking hours. I issued 1 warning for illegal parking of a vehicle on one of our streets, issued another warning for a resident who was pushing driveway snow out onto the residential street. And I investigated a complaint from a resident who complained that snow was being blown out onto the street from private property. That matter was investigated promptly, and it was found to be unfounded. So there was no other action required on my part. In January, I had occasion to observe heavy equipment operating on Hydro Road South. And this was in association with the OPG construction that's going on down there, specifically the destruction of the coming destruction of the water tower at the hydro dam. Anyway, as it turned out, there was a heavy Caterpillar tracked vehicle, track machine, brushing machine that was unloaded off of a float and was traveling on Hydro Road South. It had ice claws on it, and it was scalping the road surface on Hydro Road South. So I issued a stop work order to the company that was operating the machine there, and I contacted the CAO and Public Works and photographed and documented the damage that was being done to the road, and we made sure that that damage was ceased. And I'm happy to say that no other damage took place after that. In February, I investigated a complaint of snow being blown from one property onto another neighbor's roof. It was a little bit unusual. I've never had a complaint quite like that one before. And I inspected and investigated that matter. The evidence that was there was rather inconclusive. And regardless of that fact, it's interesting to note that the bylaw, the Terrace Bay bylaw that affects this sort of thing specifically excludes snow being blown onto another person's roof. It does include being blown onto their property, but it says specifically that it does not have anything to do with snow being blown onto people's roofs. And so anyway, it was found not to be a violation, and the matter was closed. Further in that month, I investigated a complaint of snow being blown onto an adjoining neighbor's property. I inspected that complaint and completed interviews. There was no evidence of that offense. I found that the complaint was unfounded and that matter was closed. In March, I had a complaint of household garbage being stockpiled in the rear of a yard at a residence in town. I conducted 3 inspections over the next 2 months, and I found that there was no evidence of that offense. I had to wait for the snow to melt to make sure that there was no garbage being buried by the snow, and there was none. I found the complaint to be unfounded, and that matter was closed. Also in March, I had 4 individual complaints involving dogs running at large. There was a flurry of complaints that came in. It seemed like everything was happening at once. And as it turns out, the matters were kind of connected. I undertook an extensive investigation with the assistance of the OPP. They were kind enough to have an officer assist me. We identified 4 different problem animals from 2 different households in the township and their owners. We issued warnings for a number of dogs that were unlicensed and dogs that were running loose. The animals have since been licensed, and we've had no further issues from those animals. In April, very few complaints. However, I did have 3 matters that were leftovers from last I reported to you. So 2 of these are follow-ups from outstanding property standards complaints from the end of 2019. They concern things like automobiles and utility trailers and derelict commercial vehicles being stored illegally on residential lots, places like people's front lawns. And so anyway, I'm happy to report that in 2 of those 3 complaints, those matters have all been removed. Those items, pardon me, have all been removed. And once we got rid of the snow and the ice, we were able to get rid of all of those vehicles and items, and those matters have been resolved. That leaves 1 outstanding property standards complaint that deals with automobiles and auto parts being stored illegally on a residential lot. About a week and a half ago, I issued an order to have that property standards order to have that matter those up, and the individual has about 2 more weeks to comply with that. So I will be monitoring the progress that they make in that regard. And that's all that I have to report to you today.
You're muted, Your Worship.
Sorry, thank you. you very much, Mr. Dennis. Is there any questions of Mr. Dennis on the report? Good. Well done. We really appreciate the report. Thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Item B, Police Services Board. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Your Worship. This was actually a request by Councillor Malashewski, so I'll turn it over to him to discuss.
Yeah. I guess everyone knows that as of June 7th, we have to have a plan in place and submitted to the Solicitor General to, I guess, tell them what we're going to do with our Police Service Board. Anyways, on the Nipigon detachment, there are seven communities that would be have to be in with this Police Service Board. That would be Scriber, Terrace Bay, Pace Plat, First Nation, Red Rock Indian Band, Nipigon, Red Rock, and Dorian. I know John has reached out to the different towns, and as of last week, he hasn't heard anything because we have to have a proposal put in by the 7th of June to let the Solicitor General know what we're doing with the Police Service Board, whether there's going to be one board, two boards, three boards, or whatever. So anyways, that's where we are right now. Part of it too, I believe, if you don't want to sit on the Police Service Board, say Scriber opts out, they still have to, I guess, participate and sign off on it. So anyways, John, I'm not sure if you've heard back from anyone yet.
Your Worship, I can speak to that. No, I have not. What I might suggest is sending a letter or another email and CC the mayor on the correspondence. The first attempt I took was through the administration side. Again, I could get an answer tomorrow. It's hard to say, but I did reach out to the communities that Councillor Malashewski mentioned. So,
and tomorrow morning at 10:30, there is a Zoom meeting information session with the OPP to go over a lot of this stuff. So that's where we are right now.
Paul, just a question. You say, what are we going to do regarding the Police Services Board? What options do we have? And do we have a list of things that we can or can't do regarding Police Services Board and that sort of thing?
I guess that would be part of the information session tomorrow, Jody. I'll take some notes and let you know. But what I was told is, say the other 6 communities opt out, Terrace Bay would be the one with the Police Service Board, I guess. Or if no one wants a Police Service Board, then you don't have, you don't have much representation or pull or whatever, I guess. So we'll see what they say tomorrow.
Okay, Paul, that's at 10 o'clock in the morning, you said?
10:30.
Oh, okay. Is there any chance you can get me an invite to that meeting?
John got me the invite. I don't know if it's too late or not.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me know how it goes and what they really want, okay?
Okay.
And so we can bring it back to council.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Item C, any questions, further questions of Paul? Hearing none, we'll move on to item C, Federation of Canadian Municipalities regarding their AGM. Mr. Hall.
So Councillor Moore had actually inquired if we had fulfilled our membership. We did send the check in. We're just waiting to hear back officially, but he did have some questions and some points about their annual general meeting that's coming up. So I'll turn the floor over to him.
Thank you, John. Yes, just I was kind of concerned about FCM in the past. I know that we had been a member and then we let it lapse for a bit. What brought it to my attention with regard to getting reactivating the membership was the federal government's proposal to have municipalities draft firearms regulations for their communities. And I don't think that as a community, we want to be drafting any type of firearms regulation. But be that as it may, if we want our voice heard, we need to be a member of the association. I've since been getting emails from them with regard to their AGM. And I note that there are several topics of interest that they're going to be looking at from May 31 to June 4. So I would like to have council's permission to attend these. They're going to be Zoom meetings held virtually, and take an interest in the topics that are being presented and report back to council on some of those initiatives. Some of them include affordable housing, women in local government, municipal public libraries, of which I'm really interested in, and also a Plan Your Tree Planting program, just some of the items that are on the agenda for discussion during that time period. So I'd like to put forward that for consideration that council have me participate in that. And if we submit our registration by April 23rd, we get in at a reduced rate.
And when is that conference?
The date is May 31st to June 4th. And it's a virtual annual general meeting.
Anybody got a problem with that? Would you like to make a resolution?
No.
Yeah, I'd make the resolution, yes.
John, can we draft up the resolution drafted up that we send one delegate to the FCM annual conference?
Yeah, I can do that. We'll just do it at the end under resolutions, if that's okay.
That'd be great. Okay.
Yeah, and yet just taking one step back here, we're so sorry, there is a resolution with respect to the bylaw enforcement officer's report.
Well, there you go. Maybe we'll go backwards. Okay, could you read the motion, then I'll ask for a second, mover and seconder.
Certainly. Resolve that council approve the bylaw enforcement 2021 first quarter report as presented.
Mover and seconder. Rick, and seconder, Paul. We have a motion and a mover and a seconder. Any further questions on that report? Hearing none, I'll call the motion to vote. All in favor, hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, so we can move on to item D, the COVID-19 update. Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Resolution on the FCM.
Under resolutions, Mike, near the end.
Sorry, thank you.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Hall.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just a verbal update with respect to COVID-19. Obviously, the province passed further restrictions on as of last Friday. They then proceeded to step back those some of those restrictions or some of those enforcement tools over the weekend. So we were in the process of closing the parks, and now I believe we're in the process of opening them or caution taping them for now, and we'll just see where this all goes. We have no ability to clean the parks equipment, but there is new data on outdoor transmission. So we would just encourage everybody. We'll have signage up, encouraging everybody to stay as distant from each other as possible, wear masks, bring hand sanitizer, that sort of thing. In terms of vaccines, the province also announced that as of tomorrow, anybody over the age of 40 can apply, I believe, to local clinics to receive the AstraZeneca vaccine. So of course, we would encourage anybody to do that, get as many people vaccinated as possible. The other restriction was with respect to the OPP and people being off their property, having the right to question and find or ask for address, sorry. So that was one of the ones that got walked back. I believe there was clarification that was put out. That might be a question for us on the MECG meeting on Friday to talk to our representative on that committee about what the parameters are that those powers are going to be exercised within. And finally, the borders were closed with the province of Manitoba and province of Quebec, the international border being closed since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So other than that, there is one active case in the Terrace Bay or the North Shore Family Health Team catchment area that was announced today. So we are not out of the woods yet. Everybody just remain vigilant. And again, the township has its plans and its PPE and its protective shields in place. So other than that, it's somewhat business as usual, but obviously with COVID restrictions in place. So.
Any questions? It's just a report. We don't need a motion on that, John?
No, it's just a verbal report. It's one I've added to the agenda over the last little while, just to update council on the different things that happen each week in case they didn't catch the news. So We're,
Okay.
your worship, we're involved every week with the MECG, so we're right in the middle of it. So.
Yeah, we are. Okay, reports from department managers, special projects coordinator. Report on the solar panels summary. Go ahead, Stacy.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. I'm here today to update you on the solar panels. So in 2012, the Township of Terrace Bay entered into 2 microfit contracts with the Independent Electricity System Operator, formerly the Ontario Power Authority. Then in January 2013, 10 kilowatt solar photovoltaic arrays consisting of silicon polycrystalline solar modules were installed on the roof of the community center in the Michael King Hall by Northern Sun Solar. These are high performance modules with up to 15.7% in efficiencies that had a 10-year limited product warranty, but still maintain a 25-year linear power guarantee. Our system also includes Enphase Energy Solar microinverters with their own 25-year limited warranty, accompanied by their Envoy and lifetime monitoring and analysis software, Enlighten. When the position of the Special Projects Coordinator was replaced in November 2019, the community center solar panels had not been updating their energy production to the township system since June 2018. Therefore, no data was recorded for their energy production during that time. Administration was finally able to connect with the original installer in February 2020. It was discovered that at least 1 microinverter was required to be replaced with the possibility of others. As discussions took place to arrange the servicing on our solar panels, the COVID-19 pandemic was declared in Canada and the technician was no longer to come from Thunder Bay to complete the work. The repair was postponed until emergency orders were lifted. On August 20th, 2020, the solar technician was able to travel to Terrace Bay to replace the Enphase inverter under the manufacturer's warranty. They also worked with the Special Projects Coordinator to investigate and reconnect the Envoy monitoring system. It successfully reported for 24 hours before failing again. At this time, the technician had returned to Thunder Bay. So administration was faced with several challenges, not only with the epidemic restrictions, but also with maintaining contact with a reliable technician to continue troubleshooting the problem. In November 2020, administration with a new technician from Automation Now coordinated to review the connection of the solar panels Envoy reporting system. Detailed service reports and discussions identified the aging power over Ethernet structure that connected our data monitoring was not a static or stable internet feed, thus resulting in unreliable and failed data reporting. During the technician's review, he also confirmed the following. Although there had been no live data reporting to our system, there would be no effect on its reporting to Hydro. Therefore, our revenues are still being generated based off of our production through their own data capture. So as per recommendations by the service technician, administration brought in a static IP internet and hired a local technician to run an Ethernet line from the new static IP connection directly to our solar panel system. Since the installation in December 2020, our Envoy's monitoring system has been reporting steadily with no drops. With the first quarter of the year complete, administration now has its first collection of uninterrupted solar panel data since June 2018. This data continues to be monitored and will be used to cross-reference our revenues for accuracy. For our financial implications, administration has determined that there is a decrease in revenue over the past few years. From 2013 to 2017, the solar panels averaged $23,000 in revenue per year. From 2018 to 2020, the revenue averaged $19,000 per year. There are a number of factors that can contribute to the decrease, including less sunlight, extreme temperatures, aging of equipment, and faulty reporting. Administration will closely monitor through the summer months to see if revenue numbers will rebound, indicating past faulty reporting or if any other factors come into play. There are no recommendations at this time, as this report is information only. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Any questions? All right, Paul.
This is for Danny. If he's still there, can you refresh my memory? Where does revenue get reported to for the solar panels?
I do believe we have the one account under tourism.
Okay.
Under community development, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Danny. Any other questions? Hearing none, I guess we have a motion, Mr. Hall. Mute.
Wrong one. I have two mutes on my microphone here. Anyway, the resolution reads, Your Worship, resolve that council approve the solar panel summary report as presented.
Any mover and seconder?
I'll move.
Mike and Bert? Okay, any further questions? Hearing none, I'll call the motion to vote. All in favor, hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Stacy.
Thank you, everybody.
Next item of business is adoption of minutes. Would you read the motion, Mr. Hall?
Sure thing. Resolve that the minutes of the regular council meeting held Tuesday, April 6th, 2021 be approved as presented.
A mover and seconder, please. Councillor St. Louis, Councillor Malashewski. Are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'll call a motion to vote. All in favor, hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. Correspondence action items, the North Shore Family Health Team Vaccine Advocacy. Any questions on this? I guess the gist of this is we want to get small communities vaccinated on everybody to get it at once. Do you think this is relevant now? Is this worth it? Go ahead, Paul.
I don't, we can still support it, Jody, but I know they said anyone over 40 can get the AstraZeneca, but the Ontario government in Toronto anyways said they're taking 25% of the allotted vaccines for Southern Ontario. So whether it does us any good or not, I don't know, but it'd be worthwhile supporting.
Have our voices heard? Okay,
yeah.
Mike?
I agree with Paul. I think that it's, at least if nothing else, it's an opportunity for council to show support of the North Shore Family Health Team unit. And who knows where it's going to go. If we don't put it forward, we know nothing's going to happen. So if we at least put it forward, something may happen.
For sure. I think we're doing okay. We are 1% of the population of Ontario, our district health unit. Right now, we're still getting more than 1% of the vaccine, so we're doing okay. But to support the health unit and reduce the chances of losing more vaccines to the epidemic down south, it might be good to advocate to keep the vaccines going here and maybe get some immunity going. John, go ahead.
Just at the very least, Your Worship, it does reference that we currently get our 150 doses, and it is advocating to get more doses per instance. It's actually advocating to get up to 1,500 to do the bulk of the community in one shot, as a previous resolution by our neighbors to the east had put forward. So it is a good thing that it's advocating on. It's helping the family health team. So from administration's perspective, we don't see an issue. We think you should support it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Do we have a motion on that, Mr. Hall?
We do. If I'll just be able to bring it up here. Okay. Would you like me to read it?
Please.
Whereas the towns of Terrace Bay and Scriber have recognized in their strategic plan and have demonstrated over the years their commitment to the importance of healthy citizens as a foundation of healthy, engaged, and economically vibrant community. And whereas vaccine availability in the communities of Terrace Bay and Scriber be minimal at 150 per week, requiring a weekly trip to Thunder Bay for vaccine pickup. And whereas the province has mobilized vaccines in large volumes to immunize remote communities, local First Nations communities of Bitagong, Nishnabeg, and Netmazig, Gamig, Nishnabeg, and urban Indigenous communities successfully. And whereas the province of Ontario has started immunizing lower risk segments of the population in urban areas, while we do not yet have sufficient vaccines to have even done the high risk populations of rural Northern Ontario. Whereas there are examples in other jurisdictions, notably British Columbia, that have demonstrated the ability to deliver and show effectiveness of mass rural community vaccination. And whereas the communities of Terrace Bay and Scriber have the capacity for mass vaccination in a single week to immunize the entire adult population. And whereas the McCausland Hospital site of Nosh watched its first affiliated hospital site of Marathon General Hospital enter an outbreak that created an urgency to the need to support immunization protection of healthcare workers and the population in order to safely and successfully sustain already fragile health services. And whereas the remote nature of the community of Terrace Bay, rurality index score of 92 out of 100, and Scriber, rurality index score of 86 out of 100, create additional complexity and vulnerability for the population. And whereas the overall expense of weekly travel for vaccine pickup, the inefficiency of mobilizing one clinic per week, and the enormous cost of backfilling hospital staff with agency staff are made much more cost and resource efficient by a single mass vaccination clinic strategy that would protect healthcare staff and community alike. The towns of Terrace Bay, Scriber, and surrounding small communities express its support or their support of the urgent delivery of approximately 1,500 doses of available vaccine to be delivered to the remaining adult population in the community who are eligible for vaccination, to be provided by the Thunder Bay District Health Unit and administered in collaboration with the North Shore Family Health Team and NOSH staff, and an appropriate amount to complete all second doses to be repeated approximately 4 weeks later. That the towns of Terrace Bay, Scriber, and surrounding small communities call on the Northern Ontario Municipal Association and through them to the Association of Ontario Municipalities to urge the province of Ontario to create an approach to all northern and rural municipalities to enable mass vaccination of adult populations for vulnerable populations wherever communities have the capacity to provide the service, and that the towns of Terrace Bay, Scriber, and surrounding small communities convey the decision of council on this resolution to the local MPP, the Ontario Minister of Health, the Thunder Bay District Medical Officer of Health, the Premier of Ontario, and the Federal Minister of Health.
Did everybody get that, or we need it read again?
Not a problem.
No, thank you, John. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Bert and Rick, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call the motion to vote. All in favor, hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you, John.
Yep.
Okay, we move right down to public question period, eh? We have that other business and
Hang on, let me remember my-
resolution Mike had to say?
That public question period is first.
Okay, yeah. Okay, is any questions from the public?
Just put it out there again, Your Worship. No hands raised and nobody typing into the chat, Your Worship. Not tonight.
Okay. And we, item 10, the resolutions, we have that resolution regarding FCM.
Yes, 1 second, let me bring that up.
Okay.
Okay, so resolved that council approve the attendance of one member to the FCM annual general meeting virtually to be held May 31st to June 4th, 2021, and that any appropriate expenses be paid as per township policy.
Questions? Hearing none, I'll call the motion vote. All in favor?
You need a mover and a seconder, Your Worship, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Who wants to
That's
move
okay.
it? Who wants to move this? Nobody? Oh, Rick and Bert. Any further questions? Now I'll call the motion to vote. All in favor, hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. Now we'll just have to look at, is anybody interested in going?
Yeah, well, I'd be interested. It's virtual, so we don't have to go anywhere.
Well, attending, pardon me, I would say it correctly, attending. Okay, Mike, I don't see anybody opposing, so if you want, we'll put your name down to attend, and if you're unable, please let us know so that somebody else can attend, okay?
We'll do that, thank you.
Okay. Other business? Hearing none, we'll go into in camera Thank you. Closed session. What's the B, personal, legal, in camera? That's the in camera closed session you're talking about?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So we have a motion to move in camera.
We do, your worship.
Okay. Would you like to read it?
Certainly. Resolve that council proceed in camera in order to discuss matters pertaining to one matter under personal matters of an identifiable individual, including municipal and local board employees, the CAO clerk performance evaluation.
Okay, a mover and seconder. Mike and Paul. All in favor? Hands up. Hands down. Opposed? Motion is carried. We will now move into closed session. So anyhow, we got to go back and find the closed session, right?
Yep. There's just a couple comments in the, correct. So this meeting will end. Mr. Riley is asking if you'll be available for an interview tomorrow, so you may want to contact him. And Ms. Gramatowski has asked or suggested or commented, police service board can be helpful when infirm or individuals in mental distress need to be identified in the community. So I just share those comments. But other than that, we will adjourn after the close. And this portion of the meeting is over.
Paul, you'll deal with that other comment from Mrs. Gramatowski?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to, and it is now 8:33. So let's see if we can get by 8:35, find our way back to the next Zoom meeting.